My profane friends. Now, I was just doing a recall, total recall, some movie clips. I'll put this in with it anyway. But it just there was a column, yeah, in the film, and it looked like the fallen man, yeah. I'll record it anyway. But the point of the matter is, the Oldenburg, I done a search on the Oldenburg column. Yeah, nothing came up. You know what I mean? It was just given, like an architecture, blah blah blah. But then I found this Oldenburg family. Okay, and this is what you're up against in every town and city, and this is what you've got to understand. Yeah, look, the House of Oldenburg. Look, the House of Oldenburg is a German dynasty, which we know the royals are, and you can see old King Charles there, whose members rulers have ruled in Denmark, Iceland, Greece, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. So why do you think all of these people are at war? No, they are best friends. Yeah. Now I want to show you some more of this. I can go to the list of members of the House of Oldenburg, blah blah blah. There's the lineage. Look, yeah, like here they can show you. But look what you're looking at. Yeah. What are you seeing? The heraldy. You see the heraldy, and you'll find that in every cathedral, you'll find that in every church, because they're the ones ruling the pulpits in your church. Yeah, it's not just the churches they're running; they run in your stores. You see, these are the families here. Look, the Oldenburg family, the Saxon Empire. You see, and if you know about it, then I don't really need to tell you, because obviously a lot of you know this sort of research anyway. But you can see all of these families, look, that go back. Frederick Augustus II, his family, and his family's family will be running the shops. Do you see what I mean? They're your Quakers, your traders. Do you see what I mean? And all we do, and here we go now, look, and here they are up to date, look, you see? And now this is the lineage, what looks after your town and cities. And the people that look after these people here, yeah, that are supposed to have the best interest of us, which they don't, of course, yeah, are the criminals within Freemason lodges, yeah, and these are your top, like, worshipful masters, grand masters, and all the rest of it. But here's the shields, look, see, they're Knights Templars, look, the Oldenburg shield, look, you see what I'm saying, my profane friends? This is what you're up against, the coats of arms. See, then you've got the Kitchener's family. You see what I mean? And different Oldenburg go off from that. You see, Oldenburg family coat of arms, look, the Langstons. You see, and each branch protects each person within a county, within a state, within a country. Do you see what I mean? And they call to arms when they get into trouble. They go, oh, help us. And all they do is help themselves, yeah, between themselves, making sure the poor, the peasants, don't get anywhere. You see what I mean? And here's all the coat of arms of all the knights that ran down peasants. You know what I mean? Like I said, I went the other day to see the knights, and their armor is impregnable. So if you stood there with a pitchfork, and that's before they even got on a horse. Do you know what I mean? But here's all the knights, these are your Knights Templars, the people that run your towns, run your cities, run your counties, run your states, run your blah, 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 blah. Look, here's the historic arms, look, of what runs Great Britain. Look, see, England, Scotland, and Wales. You see, all these families here, these are your top Freemasons within the town and city, and they allow drug dealing and anything that goes on within your town. These people allow it, yeah, because it keeps the chaos going, and it puts them they go back into the, no one thinks about it. Do you know what I mean? No one knows about it. All we're thinking about is the indigenous species. But you've got to think the indigenous species are the Freemasons. Their leaders are leading them just the same as our leaders are leading us. And so long as we live in chaos and crap and shit, they're happy with it. Do you know what I mean? Again, look, historical England and Wales, and you'll find all this heraldry in your churches, in your cathedrals, because these are the families that built and done wars with each other, just like games, the Game of Thrones. And they bow down to each other. And when there's trouble, all of these people here, these families, they get their swords, their knights, and they just ride peasants down. You will be put down, and you will do as you're told. And that still goes on today, except they're that clever now, they use the police force to do that. You know what I mean? And they're paid well to do that. And like I said, all the Freemasons are hidden you know, behind all this heraldry. Look, heraldry, scroll, England and Wales, all these families. Look, this is what you're up against. See the four square there? Look, see, look, four square, fleur de pis. You see what I mean? It's all different families that look after each other. There's your three moons of the Shriners. You see what I mean? That's all they are. They're different leagues of different Freakmasons, yeah. And here they are. Look, here's the big time. You know what I mean? These are the big ones that own it all. Look, you got your three sabers. You see that again to do with the Shriners. You know what I mean? You got your horse, your white horse. You got your fleur de pis cross there. Look, yeah, fleur de pis cross. You can see the roses. All of these families, these are the major families, the ones that rule the counties. Look, you see, and then all these minor ones, yeah, are the families that run the shops and the towns and the cities. You see what I mean? These run the counties. These families run the counties. All right. All these emblems here. These run your counties. Yeah. See the Masonic knot there. Look. Within the square, look, that's a Masonic knot. Look it up. Put in Masonic knot and look it up. It's there. It's all Masonic, yeah. Everything is Freakmasonry, yeah. So these in the middle, they're your main families, yeah. These control Norfolk, these control Suffolk. Then you get into Essex, and then you get into London, yeah. And then you got all these minor families, yeah. They do nothing, all of these, yeah. They just run the countries and the world and everything else, yeah. Then you have these minor families. These minor families will run your towns and cities or your counties, yeah. Do you see what I mean? And then they own the shops. They own all the leases on all the buildings. Do you know what I mean? They own the land, yeah. And as you can see, there's plenty of fleur de pislet, plenty of fleur de pislet, three circles. Oh, I scrolled out again, sorry. Again, you can see plenty of checkerboards. Look, you see what I mean? It's all Masonic, and that's what the symbolism means. Do you know what I mean? Look, county council or borough arms are shown within the county boundaries marked with a purple line. You see what I mean? County council. So these are the people that run your councils, these families. No one else is going to be running the councils. The profane don't, because it's not in their best interest for profane people to look after themselves. Yeah? This is all you're up against all the time. These people, these families, yeah? And all they do is bring indigenous species over here. So then we're thinking about oh, look at them. They're taking, no one's taking liberties. It's done by an agenda, and it's done by design. Because while you're thinking about the indigenous species that have been sent over here by the Freakmasons, yeah, to cause the chaos, you're not thinking about these families. And they love it. It's perfect for them. But this is what you're dealing with and what you're up against. You know, these people here. You know, and it's there in the heraldry. You know, if you ain't sure, go look it up, go research it. You know, look, it's everywhere. You know, it's there. The research is there. You've just got to do it. Now we're coming into Europe. Look, who do you think runs Europe? Do you think that's Freakmasons? That's all kings, queens, lords, dukes and earls. And again, look, across Europe, look, all these families, look, that swear allegiance to the Freakmason order. You see, look, see? Look, Knights Templar crosses. See, these are all the families, you know what I mean? Bishop mitres, you know what I mean? Control the pulpit, control the churches. We control everything. Any religion, they control. Everything they control. And they got the narrative on it, yeah? Again, I'm going to get more into that with the videos. For instance, if a town came, you know, like, let's say, for instance, I woke up Great Yarmouth, right? They would go around telling the rest of the country, yeah, or the world, yeah, because they got the know-how to do it. Instead of complaining, they're saying, oh, they're all terrorists or this, that, and the other. They'll kill you, wipe you out, yeah, and nothing's said. And the true story doesn't get out because they've got the narrative on that story. Same as in Gaza or anywhere else. Do you know what I mean? There's reasons and things behind it, more about what I don't know about anyway, and I don't profess to know about it. You know what I mean? But I do know what goes on within my community, and the families like this are the ones that are controlling the drugs, controlling the you know, the corrupt people there. You know what I mean? They all, from when I was back in my teens, yeah, I remember these people, and they're still drug dealing today. You know, they were running the doors like the Hulcum, which is shut down now, but it's still owned by Freakmasons. You see what I mean? And they were doing it for years and centuries. You know, they've been doing it for decades. But that's your families, look. So you tell me who's ruling Europe. Do you know what I mean? All these families, you don't think they're all interconnected and they're not best of friends? Of course they're all interconnected. Of course they're all best of friends because they marry into each other's families, yeah? These are the bloodlines, yeah? Everyone else is a slave to these people. Don't matter who you are, but there it is, look. Do you know what I mean? You know, and you can go on and research it all day long. It's in the maps, you know what I mean? They tell you, you know, look here, who do you think's running this? Yeah, there's Britain, right? There's Britain, okay? What's the difference to the rest of Europe? Nothing. Do you see what I mean? There ain't nothing. No difference anywhere. It's there, look, the Heraldy, what runs the towns and cities. Look at the towns and cities that are within this map. How much of these Freemasons here? How much of this do you think is Freemasonry running here? Look, this Europe, yeah, just Europe alone. How many Freemasons do you think are running Europe? Look at the triple tall crosses, look, of Masonic. You got the Knights Templar cross there. You see what I mean? All of these emblems mean something or have something, and they learn it from a very young age. Okay, let's look at Ireland, shall we? Who's running Ireland, do you think? What families are running Ireland? And this is what you got. And they keep getting you to fight for these people. You're fighting for them all the time. You're not fighting for yourself. You're fighting for these greedy parasites, yeah, that keep selling you shit, running the shops, running every piece of business. They run the boxing clubs. They run the rugby clubs. They run everything. They run the pubs, the clubs, the doors. You look into who runs all the security. It's all these people, yeah? And anyone who steps out of line, they're just killing or assassinating. This one's a very good one, look. National emblems and coat of arms of European countries. Look. See, look, they're just families. All, and like I said, these big families here that run the counties, look, or the states, yeah? The counties and the states, look. There's the Great Britain one, yeah? And then they have all these other little gangs in between, yeah, they have all these little gangs that then come and look after them. You know, you fall out of line, then they call on these families here to come and get you and kill you, assassinate you, whatever they need to do to shut you up so no one else catches on to what they're actually up to. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it is. You know, learn your heraldry. Look at Europe there. You know what I mean? All these families, look, that's all you're dealing with. That is exactly what you're dealing with in every town and city. So take back your towns, take back your cities if you want a better life. Because these people will never give you it. Never. Because they like the chaos, and then they can get the order out of chaos with their little police, Masonic police, and their little Masonic bailiffs. Do you know what I mean? But that's what you're up against, you know? Look at it. Look at the families within your own area. You know, like I said, you've got your main people like this running your counties and your states, and then the people running your towns and cities, like your mayors, your chaplains, your bishops, and everything else, come from this lineage. You see what I mean? And their lineage goes on and on. Not profane ones. Show me a profane person here. Show me a profane shield. A peasant. Go on. You ain't going to find it. You ain't going to find it. Do you know what I mean? Because only they run it. They control it. Do you know what I mean? And if you got a good look at what they actually look like, you know, and I could go through the heraldry all day long, yeah. And I'm not just talking about here. The America is the same. It don't matter what country you're looking at. It's all to do with heraldry, yeah. The first people that conquer anything, yeah, for oil, gold, whatever that wealth is, yeah, are Freemasons, and that's all it is. And it's all about keeping the control. Like I said, if let's say like you got a blade of grass, right? You found a way to take one blade of grass, put it in a petrol tank, and you could run that car for 100 miles. Do you know what would happen to you? You'd be assassinated, and they would take that away from you. That's what these families would do, and that's the bottom line of it. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't have that. And here's the families that go back decades and centuries. Look, these. You know what I mean? Whether they're, you know, people call them Rothschilds and all the rest of it. It's not about that. You know what I mean? It's about them, and always them. You see what I mean? Look, these are the people. They've been in control for centuries and decades, yeah? People just like this, and you can see photos exactly the same in Masonic lodges. You know what I mean? These are the people with the history. You know what I mean? And all you're doing, they've been working it all during the wars. You know, who's the first people, like say Germany's World War II? Who were the first people to round up the Jews? The police and the locals. The locals and the police helped the Germans and the SS to round up the profane locals and put them on the trains. They were your prison guards. Do you see what I mean? And they put you in ghettos, and the people controlling them ghettos were the same local people that now come and arrest you, take your car and all the rest of it, and put you in jail. Do you know what I mean? They create the problems, especially with the drugs, you know. Crazy, but that's the lineage, you know. These are the people. Look, Oldenburg family, look, yeah, and I can go on and on and on, you know. And like I said, these people go back centuries and decades. There's the coat of arms, look, the Grand Duchy Oldenburg House. Oops, site can't be reached. But these are the people, look, see, Masonic, see him, look, House of Oldenburg. He's alive today, these people. You see what I mean? That goes back, look, you see. And all them wars, what you had, or they had, you see, here's the knights, look. You see, they're just Knights Templars. See, and then if you know who the Knights Templars are, yeah, and what they are and what they're capable of, and there's obviously you got the old thingy, you know, you got this old Knight Templar. Look, you see him. Look, what's he grabbing? His obelisk. You know what I mean? Oh, watch them. They're right on their obelisks. But there we go. Look, you see, and this is what you're getting. These are the families that go back, and you think you have a chance, that you and your family care or matter to these people. You're living in a fantasy world, my profane friends. These are the people you've got to get, you know what I mean, out of control of your parliaments, of your town house, of your parish councils, everything, out of the pulpits, because they control the pulpits. But let's look at the House of Oldenburg, shall we? Now, the House of Oldenburg is German, which we know the royal family is Germany anyway. But they ruled in Denmark, Iceland. Oh, we've already read that, haven't I? But there's the coat of arms, yeah, and you can go back, you know, like the rulers, yeah. But if you look and go into the history of it, see, here they are, look, they got their own coinage, yeah, because they got all the money. They took all the money off the peasants. Do you see what I mean, yeah? But you got the main line, look, and here we go, look, counts, kings, dukes, lords. Do you see what I mean? And that's what it is, the lords, dukes and earls. And you can keep going up through, look, dukes, kings, queens. There's so many kings, there's so many queens, there's so many dukes, lords and earls, right, yeah, that you can't even compute how many there is living within your community at this precise moment, yeah. You know, you've got emperors. Do you think they're all just disappeared and gone nowhere? No. They're still there in your neighbourhood. They own the shops. They own the council. They own the police. They own the nightclubs. They own the pubs. Do you know what I mean? They deem fit who gets in and who doesn't. And it's the families, the family of their lineage, yeah? Do you know what I mean? And this is what it's all about, look, see? And you can go on and on. It's kings, lords, dukes and earls, my profane friends. See, look. There you go, look. Count. Count, 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 the count, the count, the count. You see what I mean? And that's how it is. And then you got the kings, look, the kings, the kings, the king, the king. You know what I mean? And then it goes to the dukes, look, the dukes, the duke, the dukes, the dukes. You see? It's lords, dukes, and earls. And then you got the line of succession, and this is going to be another 1,000 years. These people are going to control it, because, like I said, you get any close to doing anything, all they got to do is keep control for 30 to 40 years. People get too old, yeah. A lot of people ain't thinking about it. It's even getting more dumber as you go along, yeah. So these are going already into the background. And if I'm talking about this now and you didn't even realise this, yeah, imagine what it's going to be like in another 30 years when they really set, you know, when there's like street wars, because they've got Freemasons within the Muslim groups. They've got Freemasons within the blacks. They've got Freemasons within the whites. They've got Freemasons within the Chinese. Do you see what I mean? Each and every town and city, every country has Freemasonry. Elders, we'll call them elders, yeah, or strong leaderships that control the weak, profane mind, yeah, that will get them to fight amongst themselves but pretend they're on your side. Do you see what I mean? You know, you'll have say a Pakistani man, yeah, stand there in a British uniform going, I'm on your side, but no, he ain't. He's on Masonic side because he's just not going to wear his Masonic apron. And here they are, look, the kings, look. The first was King Christian, then you got King Charles, do you see what I mean? Then Queen Margaret, do you see what I mean? All these kings. And then when you do the research into these families, you'll find there's Gypsy G travellers that have you know, because you can't stop love, that have found, you know, because they got kings and queens and all the rest of it as well. Yeah, you'll find that they've married into that, and they're actually the protection. Like, you know, like if you see a vampire, who looks after vampires while they sleep? The gypsies, yeah. And they transport them and make sure they're welfare because they're looked after, and they get the, you know, to live on their land. And here we go, look, counts, dukes, grand dukes. Do you see what I mean? It's lords, dukes, and earls, and they're the ones that look after your county, look after your states. Don't think that just because you're in America, that isn't thingy. Here's the other one. Look, here's another one. House of Glut, and then you can go on again. Look, you see the heraldry, look, and the knights. Do you see what I mean? All them little things in between, yeah. You know, the duchy. Look, see, it's all out there. And then you got Mountbatten. Look, connected families, Mountbatten and the Windsors. You see, then you've got the cadet branches, look, which is another little, you know, ones that look after. You've got the Danish royal family, the Greek royal family, Norwegian royal family, and the British royal family. Do you see what I mean? And they all protect this family here. And when they go call to banners, that's who comes to help. So when you're fighting these people, you know, which they don't wear their Masonic aprons because that's what holds them all together. The rituals, you know, of killing and sacrificing the babies and etc. Look, etymology, look. You see? And it goes back and back and back and back. Again, look. See? They've got their own coins. You know what I mean? 1779, 1622, 1545. You see, they go back centuries and decades. But it doesn't matter. They've done that right up till today. What matters now is what you're going to do and allow them to do tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Are you going to carry on allowing these people, do you know what I mean, to keep on playing their little games? So they know how about, look at the country, look, the parent house, look, the Russian Empire, Kingdom of Denmark, Sweden, Norway. You see what I mean? And that's just how they're connected through everything and everyone. You know what I mean? There ain't none. See, if I go Oldenburg family, if I put America, let's see, because again, it's the same. You know, people think it ain't. Look, found in the USA, the UK, the Canada, and Scotland between 1840 and 1920. And all it was is they were a big gang, went around bashing people, and that's what they did. Do you know what I mean? Killed all the peasants. Do you know what I mean? And that's it. And then moved in other people, and we said, right, now we're charging you rent, and that still goes on today. You know, look, the Lurie family today. You see, look, there's the Lurie family. See, and they go back centuries and decades. You know what I mean? And they deem or decide, look, over 3,000 years of humans exaggerating their lineage on families. You know what I mean? And here's the lineage, look. The Avengers family tree. Look, see? Look it up. That's what you're dealing with in your towns and cities. And they're all Freakmasons. That's all it is. And that Masonic lodge keeps people bounded and binded as if, and you're getting the privilege of this, that, and the other. Do you know what I mean? What? Yeah, look. The 8 oldest family trees ever. You know what I mean? And the families go back and back, and the legacies they own or have, which is all to do with this. Do you see what I mean? There's no profane people here, my profane friends. You know what I mean? Look, you see? You go back, and this is what you're looking at. You know, this is what you're looking after. Their families. You see what I mean? And it's, oh, what was that about Vin Diesel there? Oh, baby, he's gone. Let's have a look. See if I can get that back. What's he to do with anything? Oh, it's family quotes. You've got Kardashians there, look, their family trees. But that's what it is. They just put in their own people that, you know, they're the movie stars, you know, they're TV personalities, all of that. They deem and decide who's going in, and it's all to do with acting, you know. Doesn't matter. As long as you get people distracted and thinking, you know, European royal family tree. Look at that lot. Do you know what I mean? And that's across Europe. You know what I mean, my profane friends? But you look into it, you look at the families within your own towns, like I have, yeah? And you'll see exactly what these people are. They're the ones controlling everything within all towns, within all cities. And then I've just done the Oldenburg family because I had to, you know, the House of Hanover, yeah? Do you see what I mean? Look, go to the images, and straight away, see? The families there, look, it goes back to the lords, the dukes, and they fight. you know, when they want to control other families and they get together, and this is why war's happening. You know, you go into into Hitler's past, he went for a vie. That's why he didn't persecute Freemasons. He was persecuting the Freemason families at the head, because he knew they controlled they controlled the towns, they controlled the cities. Yeah, you know what I mean. I could go back, you know, to like Egypt. Yeah. This is where it all started, where Moses, yeah, he took a nation of Freemasons out of slavery and bondage, which were Gypsy G travellers, yeah, and those that worked within the pyramids for the pharaohs learned the ways of the pharaohs, yeah, and how they enslaved people, yeah. And when the waters crashed back down, some of those Gypsy G travellers, yeah, got separated, yeah, from the other ones that Moses had, and they went off and whatever, and they're the ones that now control every town and city across the world, because they learned how to do it from the pharaohs. Do you see what I mean? And they've kept that secret all the time, how to control families, how to control crowds, you know, the profane. And here we are, look, the monarch is the House of Hanover. You see what I mean? And like I said, it's all lords, dukes and earls, kings and queens, you know. So basically you've got a king of Norfolk, you've got a king of Suffolk, you've got a king of Essex, do you see what I mean, within that Masonic lodge, and they control that, because they can't, you know, they knew, you know, if they keep killing each other, blah, 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 there's no point to it, do you know what I mean? Why don't we live in peace? And if we need to, you know, we can just control our Pacific. We, like, you got one big family, obviously, we call them the Illuminati. They go, right, we control the world, and they have big meetings, a world lodge. There's actually a Masonic world lodge, yeah, that controls. And then from the world lodge, then you got country lodges, you know, what control the countries. And then those that control the countries, the ones that answer to them are the ones that control the states. And then you got the ones that control the counties, do you know what I mean? And then each town and city then answer up to them big lodges, but they don't meet as much, do you know what I mean? Like I said, they don't need to meet as much, because most things, you know, in turn go their way anyway, because it's all been set in stone many centuries ago. You see what I mean? Because they know. But when there's a threat to it, any system, you know, they don't want you knowing that they've controlled the death industry for centuries, and they've been using profane body parts or selling them to other people in other lands that we don't even know about. You know what I mean? The deal's there, the handshakes are there. You know what I mean? But they're doing something with the bodies. I've done that in my videos. You know what I mean? Because the grave sites don't add up to the deaths. And that was during the old 2-3 year thingy-majiggy, but that's another story. Go look at my videos if you want to see it and understand it. You know, but this is what it is. They're doing all these handshakes, and every time, it don't matter where you're from, I don't care what state, what county, what town, or what city you are in, these people, these lords, dukes and earls, the kings and the queens, yeah, they're all being protected by corrupt career criminals, and they keep that going, that order out of chaos. And you've got to know that. And if you don't, you're dumb. And we are dumb. You know what I mean? Look, the House of Hanover. See the fleur de pis? Look, you'll find that in any church, because that's their houses. You'll find the lions. You'll find the. Do you see what I mean? It's all to do with heraldry. These families, yeah, and they keep the wars going over and over again. Yeah. Look, the House of Stuart. You think they're disappeared, these people? No, they're not. They're on stamps, and you know what I mean. Again, look, it's the fleur de pis. Look, you see what I mean? You know, I'm not professing to know it, yeah, because I don't know. I don't know it all, yeah. I just know these people that live in houses like this have people living in other houses in towns and cities that work for these people and make sure, you know, overseers, you know, watching out for their best interests. Do you know what I mean? You know, look at the Scotch whiskey. Look at the whiskey firms. You're buying whiskey from Masonic whiskey and whatever else you're getting. These people serve it up to you, your food. Yeah, they own the food, they own everything. And when it kicks off, and I mean it will, yeah, the first thing they're going to do is order all their Masonic lorries, the companies and the drivers that are Freemasons. They're going to say, don't drive, don't do this, and then there'll be no food. And then because you're all hungry and starving, Yeah, don't trust me. I'll tell you now. The Freakmasons have food stores that go on for years. Yeah, and they'll be the ones that are getting fat while you're getting smaller and skinnier. They'll still be eating like gods because they got the food stores already. Like I said, in their tunnels. Do you know what I mean? But you guys will be killing each other for food, and they love it because it's not nothing to do with them. They just sit back. They pretend they're starving and look like you. Yeah, but they're eating secretly because they got stored compartments within their houses, within the towns, within the cities, all around the place, out in the countries, on their farms. Do you see what I mean? They got food stores that'll last them centuries and decades if need be. But you guys, how prepared are you? You ain't. And they know that. You know, they got all the guns, they got all the missiles, they got all the aeroplanes, they own the air, they own the water, they own the land. Law, land, air, water. You see what I mean? They own it all. So you better get up on what your families are within your towns, within your cities, and you'll find they're all in the Masonic Lodge. They're all standing with police. They're all standing with career criminals. I know. I've got the evidence. Do you know what I mean? And I can prove it. You know, but I'm just trying to show you guys where you can prove it yourselves and investigate it. So obviously I've got videos on it and I'll show you how to do it. You know, where to start, where to go. You know, like I said, just start at a boxing club, start at you know, any security company within your town or city, or start at the doors. Look at the doormen. Who are the doormen? What is their history? Where do they come from? Do you know what I mean? Are they Gypsy G travellers, Freakmasons that control a lot of land and pubs and clubs around in your towns and cities? You know, what do they do? You know, this is the questions you've got to ask. But like I said, you know, that was just from the Oldenburg and where that takes you. You know, that's what I'm trying to get you to understand, that these people, these families, yeah, when did they move to America? See, look, in 1956. See? And there we go. That's the Oldenburgs when they went to America. And that's what I was trying to get across to you. Do you know what I mean? They're everywhere, you know. And, you know, like I said, the amount of people they betrayed, you know, over the years and the centuries and the decades, yeah, you just wouldn't believe. Because they'll stand there, like I said, in a uniform, but they'll hide their Masonic apron and they'll dress as tramps if need be to look like you, to stand with you, so you think you're comfortable with them. But when you say you'll do this or you'll do that, they betray you. Do you know what I mean? And they betray everyone. This is how they win wars when there's uprisings like Buddha Braveheart, whatever his name is. You know, all them wars, everyone is betrayed by a Freakmason that worked within the ranks. You know, either they were betrayed because the Freakmasons go, oh, offer money, gold or wealth or land. Do you know what I mean? You know, and remember, as all them lairds up in Scotland that betrayed William Wallace for land, titles and all the rest of it, and they were still fighting over the titles. Just watch Braveheart. You know, it shows you there. And that's what you're dealing with, people like this that just want the land, the air, the water. LAW, land, air, water. Their laws rule and dominate over you. You know what I mean, my profane friends? Anyway, have a great day. Like I said, these people, just like this, are still in your towns and cities today. The same family that you just saw there still run your towns and cities. Look, House of Hanover today, look, you see? Still running it. You know what I mean? You think they're going to let you, a profane peasant, take over? Look, there's the House of Hanover. Looks a bit like a Masonic lodge. I can see the pyramids, the columns. Just and you think they're ever going to give this up? Do you really think they're going to give this up? This castle here that they fought and battled for, with the clock that's square with the circle in it? You see what I mean? You think they're going to give that up to you, a profane peasant? Look, do you see the pyramids? Look at the house. Do you see? See the symbolism? You think you're going to get that off them? They're going to give that up? Look at the heraldy, look, in the pyramid, the circle, yeah? And then you in the pyramid. You think they're going to give that up to you, a profane peasant? No, we're going to carry on selling drugs, so you can never ever start thinking about what we're doing and what we're up to. You know what I mean? You'll never take this, because our family's secure for the next 1,000 years. Because if you do anything against us, we're going to send our corrupt career criminals to assassinate you and kill you. Or we're going to start a war. Then we're going to send all those that look or even look like they can think for themselves. We're going to put them on the front line. Do you know what I mean? And we'll give any excuse or any reason. Like I said, if England went, no, we're not doing this, boom, and everyone, and I mean just said, no, we're not having this, and we ousted them out, they would call to arms all those families I just shown you in Europe and America, don't matter where it is, and you'll get tanks and bombed, you'll get bombed to fuck, and they don't care. Do you know what I mean? But they'll tell the rest of the world, that's something else. They'll say we're having a civil war over something because they control the narrative, They'll say something else, but they'll bomb the whole of the UK. They don't care, just to take that back into their family. You know what I mean? Because no one is going to step out of line. You know what I mean? Because when you control it, like Rome or anywhere else, like Genghis Khan or whatever, do you know what I mean? And they're doing it. The difference between Genghis Khan, Rome, and all the rest of it, and Hitler, blah, 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 is that even though they were hiding their Masonic aprons, that they go, oh, the empire fell. No, the empire didn't fall at all, because the Freemasons do it in such a way where they hide their Masonic aprons, so you think it's Hitler, so you think it's Genghis Khan, so you think it's this, so you think it's that person, this person, do you know what I mean? But it's not, it's just the Freemasons manipulating the profane people to fight, do you see what I mean? And that's what you're looking at, all these people that, who do you think built all of that? The profane built it, Profane built all this. You know what I mean? Look, you see the Masonic symbolism, look? See the big pots? I keep calling them pots, I can forget what they are. But this is what they own. You think you're ever going to take this away from them, look? Look, you see the pyramid, look? You see the world domination ball? Yeah, the profane. I know, you go work in your chicken factory. I'm sure you'll be able to buy that within your lifetime. Yeah, look. Dynasty, look, portraiture, dynasty and power. What do you see? I wonder. That silly little Masonic black and white tiled floor. See? The power and the dynasties. Because that's what you're up against. The power and the dynasties of these sort of people, Look, Hanover, Berlin, Germany, We know who all these are. You know what I mean? Oh, baby, I get so excited I could crush a grape sometime. Look, a couple of Germans there, but no one knows it. Look at his medals, look. They're just, that's all... Masonic medals. That first medal, right? Look it up on Freemasonry and put in the forget-me-not. That's what that is. That's a forget-me-not. It's a circle. Each petal, if you do the line round it, that's your first circle. Then you got the circle in the middle, and then it's a point within a circle. You see, their history knows no bounds. There's the Knights Templar cross. Look, you see. And the sun hieroglyph going around it. All to do with Freemasonry. Look, you see it, look? Circles and squares, look. Squares and circles. It's all Masonic, my profane friends. But they trick you because they don't stand there, because they know, like Genghis Khan or the Romans or whatever, that wear that uniform, same as the police, or anyone in uniform, you point your finger, you go, it's them, it's them, it's them. So they, as many uniforms and disguises as they can put on, the better it is. Because then you've got so many people pointing at the police, you've got so many people pointing at social services, you've got so many people pointing at this, that, and the other MPs, whatever, you know what I mean? But you're not thinking about what's going on in your town. Because the same people that are fucking up the rest of the world and the rest of the countries are doing the agents, their agents, their Masonic agents are working against you within them towns. And when you rise up, that's the problem you've got. You're going to have street gangs, that are corrupt criminals, that control and have a great life selling drugs to your children, They're the ones that are going to come after you, because they're on a great thing, aren't they? Getting all the money they want, buying all their children all the best clothes, all the best holidays, having big food spreads. Do you know what I mean? Madness. Do you know what I mean? But there it is. As your families, look. Nothing's changed. These people, they still run it, still going on, and it's one legacy out of the next. Down and down, look. You see? Same families. The lords, the dukes, the earls, the kings and the queens. You know what I mean? And they're not going to give it to you, a profane person working in a chicken factory. I know. Maybe if you work in Primark long enough, you can make a decision. I'll tell you, you lot. I'll tell you, they got you sewn right up, and none of you actually fucking know it. You know, look, Royal House of Hanover in Britain. Look, all of these people. They tell you, you think these people are gone? They're disappeared. Yeah, they've disappeared because no one thinks about them, because you're thinking about the indigenous species. You're thinking about who's running number 10, who's Trump, who's the White House. Do you see what I mean? But all their agents are around you in your town and in your cities, and they're doing the work from Masonic lodges. You know, look, you see what I mean? All these people, you think they're disappeared. Crazy. Look at the pyramids on the thrones. You know what I mean? There's pyramids with an all-seeing eye on the thrones they're actually sitting on. And then again, look, if you look, you see it, look, the squares and the circles going around. Look, the square, the circles. You see? It's all there, my profane friends. You've just got to know your Masonic perverts are within your communities working against you. And so long as you don't say nothing, and so long as you don't realise it's Freakmasons that are actually hiding their Masonic aprons behind pinstripe Masonic suits like this, because you see every Freakmason wears one of these with a dicky bow, yeah? Because again, it's your Masonic symbolism there, right again. Yeah, as long as you don't know that, everything is kosher. You know what I mean? But as soon as you start realising that and waking up, they're going to shut you up and close you down because you're speaking out too much about the royal families, the lords, the dukes and the earls that are controlling the counties, the towns and the cities. And believe me, they're running your hospitals. That's why your NHS is naff. You know what I mean? They're running your bailiffs. That's why they're coming to steal your cows. And instead of stealing your cows and chickens, they're taking your cars now and anything else they can get with their trickery. You know what I mean? And like I said, this is what happens when you say no. If everyone just say no, then you'll see them rise up out of the lodges. They'll put you to the guillotine and they'll call it this, that, or the other, treasonous people, like they did back in the day. That's all they do. They make wars or some excuse to kill multiple people that wake up to their system. And when people wake up to their system, that's when they start killing them. Do you know what I mean? And it goes on and on and on, and it never ends, you know. Look, there's a Masonic lodge right there. Look, you see it? That's a Masonic lodge. These are what you get now. Go down to your local Masonic lodge, and there they are. Look, the family's still celebrating. And this is what you're getting all the time. Nothing's changed. These people still rule your towns, still rule they just don't wear this shit no more. You know what I mean? You don't see them wear this with the wigs or any of that. They're wearing suits and jackets and vicar uniforms, you know, like vicars and that. You know what I mean? This is how they're coming at you. You know what I mean? And you think they're disappeared? No, they're not. You know what I mean? They don't come at you like this. They're not dressed like this no more. You know? They've adapted to the way. You know, you ain't going to see anyone walk around like that, are you? No, they don't walk around like that. They walk around like a Freakmason in a suit or in a police uniform. This is what they look like today, you see? They're just not wearing the fancy wigs or anything else today. You see what I mean? They wear this shit. You see what I mean? But that's your lords, dukes and earls that still control your towns, still control your cities, and they get away with it because the police protect them so they can then sleep with their children or whatever they want to do because they're not being investigated. They're not being looked at. Do you know what I mean? You've got no chance. See, look, they're not wearing the fancy clothes no more. Do you see what I mean? They're like this, you see? You know? And they're all acting to look any way you want them to look, so long as you're happy and thinking the way you're thinking. But you've got to change your thinking pattern. When you look at these are lords, dukes and earls. These are wearing wigs and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? These are the privileged, you know. Look, see, why do you think that big gate is going across there? That big fence, that iron fence, because it separates you from them. And so long as you're separated from them, they're happy. Do you think they want you drinking in their local? No, they don't want nothing to do with you. You go to Scotland, they have the lairds come out at the Royal Games, yeah? They got their own separate tent, and if you get into it, like I have, and I filmed it, they're like looking down on you and they're going, and you know, they don't want nothing to do. They look at you like a piece of shit. And that's what you are to these people, pieces of shit. But they pretend that they're on your side and they just hide their Masonic aprons. You know, this is what you got. You're dealing with people like this, look, yeah? And they got the people within the Masonic lodges looking out for their best interest. You know what I mean? And that's all it is, look. They're just not wearing their wigs no more like they used to back in the day. They just they blend in and they hide their Masonic aprons behind uniforms. But anyway, there you go, my profane friends. If you haven't learned nothing today, then I don't know anything. Do you know what I mean? But there you go, look. Ernest Prince August, the king, look. See? That's the kings. These are kings, look. Prince Ernest Augustus. Oh, baby, you know what I mean? Who is he? I don't know who he is. The wedding, you see? They do everything you want to do. Augustus, Duke of. Look, see? The dukes, the lords, the earls, you see? They just don't wear this shit no more. See the 6 circles, look? For the 6 points. See, 33. See? It's all in there, my profane friends. You see, they just don't wear this shit no more. They used to, but they do, you know, now they don't. They wear their suits, their uniforms, and they dress like you. They do everything like you. Look. Everything. But you go try having a wedding at the places they equate, you know, the hotels and the clubs and the pubs. They in, you know what I mean? Look. See? You're the peasants. Learn your place. And so long as these people are in charge, you're safe and you can get along, you know what I mean? But all these people, all these wars, these are the people that have bashed so many peasants off their land, paid criminals to kill people to take their land. You know what I mean? Oh, it's an accident, whatever way you want to look at it, you know. They've took everything from everyone. They've took stealing, corruption. It's no ending. You know what I mean? Look, he's got his badges on, right? Yeah. See all the badges and all the thing. Now they don't come out in that, but every now and then they do. Look, and there it is. Look, you see it on his uniform there. Look, you see the star, the Masonic star. Look, see every now and then they come out. Even King Charles and all of that. They come out with their little uniforms. See, look, it goes back centuries and decades. You see what I mean? That's what you're looking at. All of these people, look, Heraldy, the same bloodlines that for thousands of years have controlled everything. The profane, yeah? They just don't wear this shit no more. You know what I mean? They just don't wear this crap. They wear suits. See, but you can still see, look, you can still see that star willed down by family to him. And they're the ones that control your streets, that control your high streets, your market stalls, everything. Everything you eat, drink, or sleep on, or put up as a net curtain is owned by all of these people. And they're the ones that make sure you get fed. Anyway, my profane friends, have a great day. Like I said, that's a bit of a conspiracy, and I think I went down the wrong rabbit hole there. You know what I mean? You know me, I like the bullshit. You know me, I like the brag. You know, but yeah, these are the families you've got to watch out for. But like I said, it isn't just, you know, these are the people they're showing you as the ones in the background that you don't know, the ones in the background you don't see. You know what I mean? The ones that are hiding their Masonic aprons, that are your entertainment industry, let's put it that way, within your communities, yeah? Again, there's another one, look. See the star, look? Oh, no, it's not the star. I thought he had the star on there. I was so excited I could have crushed the grape. If I looked for more examples, you can find them. You know what I mean? But they just don't wear them. Obviously, you do know. He's got one on there, isn't he? Yeah, look at it, look. You see? And they're all looked after by the army and all the rest of the interesting things you could think of. Yeah, look, perfect. See, there's the family. There's the black and white tile floor again. Look at the old photograph in the background. Look, see, their symbolism knows no bounds. Look, they eat well, they drink well, and they celebrate. And these families have gone back and back in centuries. Do you think they've lived in hardship? Hey, do you think these have lived in any hardship, these people? No, look, the family's all in the back. Look, Knights Templars, look, all in the background. And this is what they are. But they don't wear the clothes no more. They would dress like this, like you and me. You see what I mean? Madness. And that's what it is. They just dress like the same as us. And they talk to the criminals, and they get the criminals to do the work they need done. That's what it's all about. Look, you see here, look, you see the Masonic flooring, look, see the circle, look, and square. See the Masonic flooring? And that's what it's all about, my profane friends. Their symbolism knows no bounds in all communities. Crazy, look, even there, look, see the heraldy, look, there's the heraldy of the family, and that's what it looks after. See? Anyway, I think I've had a good. Well, if no one understands what I've just explained there, then there's no help for the profane. You know what I mean? Just no help for the profane. You know, no help at all. I wonder if I could do Prince. Wear a star. Let me put star. Let's see. Prince wear star. Oh no, yeah, there's one there. Look, he's there. Look, you see. So you actually got to say their friggin' names, but you see them all wear the stars. Look, with the Knights Templar cross in it. You see, look. That's all. That's what puts them the difference between you and them. And here he is. Look. See, look. There's your king. Same star. See, willed down from generation to generation. You see that there. Look, Knights Templar cross. You see, with the crown above. Again, another one there. Look, all the different heraldry he has to wear to show his allegiance to the pervert clans around the UK, America, and Europe. You see it? Look, you see another one there. Look, you see them? They're what you're looking for in your family. You know what I mean? All of these. But anyway, what do I know? It's all a conspiracy. Look, oh baby, you know what I mean? And you got Prince there. I don't really want that Prince. He was Masonic. You know what I mean? But yeah, you get the idea, don't you? If I put Princess, maybe then. Princess, wear star. Let's have a look. No, it's giving us different stars, isn't it? No. Oh yeah, there we go. Perfection. You see, look? You see my profane friends? She's got the forget-me-not, look, on the first medal as well. See? They're all in on it. See, that's the Navy, look, isn't it? Is that the Navy? Yeah, Star and Garter, new patron. The Star and Garter, another Masonic club. See? They love it. And here it is, look. Yeah, look. See the star there, look? And then you got the star there, look. You see? All heraldry to show their allegiance to what family. I mean, look at that top. How Masonic can you get? That's square and calm piss. Black and white. You see what I mean? Crazy stuff, innit? Crazy how they get away with it. But this is what you're looking at. This is what it is, you know? Yeah, who's this? I don't even know who that is, look. But you see the stars, look. She's got 3 on this time. Then you got the white Knights Templar cross, look, with the circles. See, it's always circles and then the points on the square, look, you see? So squares and circles, my profane friends. Let me show you what a forget-me-not is, yeah? How about this perv? What's he? See his star, look? I can't get it, I won't focus in. But they're all the same, it don't matter. It's all there in their uniforms, do you know what I mean? They're just not wearing their Masonic aprons. That's what binds them all together. The Freakmasons, that's what binds them. Yeah, forget-me-not. Forget-me-not. And the story of the forget-me-not. Oh my God. You know what I mean? I better put Masonic. Forget-me-not. There it is, look. See it? That's all it is, a Masonic forget-me-not. And the Freakmasons try to get us to think, yeah, that the Germans, the SS and the Gestapo, yeah, and you had certain people wear these, yeah, walking around in Germany as an allegiance to people in the UK, yeah. You know, putting their families at risk of being shot and killed by the German SS, and they were all wearing this, and they reckon the people in the UK were wearing them as well. Whereas, if I remember correctly, all the Freemasons in the UK went underground in their tunnels and were shitting themselves because they knew they would be the first ones that Hitler would have killed and assassinated, because he knew they controlled every town and city, and he didn't want that. He wanted full control. So, get full control, you've got to take out these families, which are the Freemasons, the Lords, the Dukes, and the Earls. Hitler knew that, and he vied for power. So when that Masonic war kicked off, it wasn't a war between Germany and England and all the other bloody bollocks they were coming out with. What Hitler was doing was taking out the Lords, the Dukes, and the Earls, which were Freemasons. And of course, the Freemasons go, but it's all a Masonic war, because that's what fighting, you know, it was families and the call to arms. We're fighting, yeah. Do you think it was profane people going, yeah, we're fighting this war? No, it weren't profane people. It was lords, dukes and earls, the kings and the queens. And each and every family was called to arms. Oh, you come to fight for us, or you fight? And how many, well, you're bringing your 20 people. Yeah, they were instantly, obviously, you know, generals and all the rest of it, because they're family members. They're generals, you know, like when the wars between Napoleon and I can't remember his other name, you know, the Napoleonic Wars, all of them were Freemasons. The only one doing the fighting and the killing, or the ones that were dying, were the profane people. Do you know what I mean? And the only ones who got something out of that, they didn't even, again, did they kill Napoleon? Of course they didn't. Well, they did. They poisoned him in the end. But I mean, they didn't kill him because he was a Masonic brother. You know, you will keep you alive as an example of that. If you go against us, this is what's going to happen to you. You got isolated to the Elbe. Yeah, do you see what I mean? And that's what they do. They don't kill each other. Same as the Germans during the war. What did they do with them? They all went to NASA, and was it NASA and something else? I can't remember. But they use them. You see, they don't kill them because they're Freemasons and they're brothers. Do you see what I mean? But that's the forget-me-not. But they, you know, they reckon they wore this during the Germans, yeah. That you know, the Freemasons in Germany, yeah, were walking around with these forget-me-nots, yeah, right. The British were doing it as well. The Germans had no clue. You know what I mean? The Gestapo and the SS had no clue what all these little blue flowers were these Freemasons wearing, walking around. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're going to put your family at risk by wearing one of these. Yeah, all right. You know what I mean? They talk shit, mate. And that's the lies Freemasons can, you know, in Germany, represent brotherhood, sacrifice, and remembrance, often worn as a lapel pin, especially during periods of persecution. There weren't no persecution, you know what I mean? But that's what they were trying to see. You see what I mean? It's a load of shit. Symbol of defiance and a way for Masons to recognise each other in public. So you're telling me, right, yeah, that all the Freemasons, yeah, right, were against Germany? You know what I mean? But let's put it this way, right? The German Freemasons, which was Hitler and his Freemasons, yeah, what were at war with the other Freemasons, yeah, you think they didn't have no way of knowing, yeah? So they were wearing these in public, these flowers, and they weren't worried about the Gestapo or the SS, and they had all the people they tortured, yeah, or whatever to get information. They weren't aware of a forget-me-not. They didn't have the clue that what a forget-me-not was, and that these Freemasons were walking on the streets in front of the Gestapo and the SS, going, "Yeah, I'm representing Freemasons and my brothers." I think what I think it was, yeah, is that. Is if they were wearing them, yeah, because if they were wearing them, they were fucking stupid to put their family at risk anyway. But I think it was a case of, don't touch me, I'm part of the family that's representing you, and I'm going to grasp anyone that's going to go against you Germans. Do you know what I mean? And that was a sign of an allegiance to the German Freemasons. You know what I mean? It's okay, I'm on your side. That's why I'm wearing this lapel, and that's what left them alone. Do you see what I mean? It left them alone to carry on dealing meat, food, and all the rest of it, you know, and tokens, and keep on the crime rate, whatever they needed to do. Do you see what I mean? That's what it was. To me, that's what I believe. You know, look, a secret mark of identity. So you think the police, you know, the SS and all that didn't know it was a mark of identity or anything? It was just like a thingy. You see what I mean? under the adverse conditions. What a load of shit. That's fucking load of shit, you know what I mean? Like I said, you really believe these Germans, you know, these Masonic Germans, yeah, and Masonic German Jews were walking around with these forget-me-nots all in front of the Gestapo and the SS, and they had no clue because they didn't, you know, you got to remember how fucking prevalent these Germans were about spies and all the rest of it during the war, that they were walking around with these lapels and didn't know them or notice them or know anything about them. Don't talk shit. You Freemasons lie. That's why your pants are always on fire when you're getting bum stretched in the lodge. Have a great day, my profane friends. And like I said, this forget-me-not is all about we're your brothers, we're on your side, leave us alone. And that's what that fucking symbolised. That's basically what it is. We're on your side. We're grassing up any Jews. We're grassing up any Germans that are fucking against you or going to be a freedom fighter. We're going to grass them up. And that's what that is. That's what that forget-me-not represents. But they change it round to what they want, and they own the narrative on everything like they do everything else. Anyway, have a good day. Remember, I love you all.